All right, welcome back to creating symbols in Adobe Illustrator CC Part 2. In this tutorial, we're going to cover how to vary the stroke of the symbol itself and then actually experiment with the recolor options in Adobe Illustrator CC. So the first thing we want to talk about here is varying the stroke can add a lot of interest to your piece. As you can see here in my 4 symbols I created before, I have sort of a side-by-side comparison of ones that don't have any variation and ones that do have variation. And there's a big difference in terms of the quality of the line, the thick to thin line, whether it be the leaf or the fish, or especially the butterfly here at the bottom here on the right versus this one here. So this tool is really awesome. I'm going to show you how it works. It is the width selection tool. It's a width tool, it's also called. It has a hotkey of Shift W. And it looks like I don't know, I call it like almost like a clown head or something, like an old fashioned. It's got these weird, it's a weird little symbol. It's basically right below the eyedrop tool. And in order to use it, you have to have a stroke that is that you can work with. So let me explain that first. So if you select everything here, remember we were made up of strokes and fills, basically the shapes, right? So in order to see everything, we need to go to Window and go to Brushes, and here's our Brushes palette. And the one that works really well for this, if you have like one of these other ones, and you try and grab the, you'll notice that you get this little Ghostbuster symbol, meaning, no, we can't work on it. So there's some brushes that are static that don't allow us to manipulate the width. So the one that allows you to change it is the basic one. And that's the one that we're going to use here. Before I go into that, I do want to mention that you can replace strokes just by clicking on any of the strokes in the brush library. So like the charcoal brush there, or this silly one here, any of these you could choose and just replace it, you know, in a fly, which is kind of interesting. Sometimes you get interesting results, other times not so much. But you can go into the library by going to the hamburger swatch here and go down to open brush library, and then there's a bunch of brushes here. Like there's a whole section called artistic calligraphy that's really interesting. And so I'll kind of bring those over. And so you could kind of go through and try different ones, and you get different results based on that. Let's go to some other ones. Let's close out this guy. Let's try the artistic and the charcoal. These ones are kind of groovy. You can see you get different results with the charcoal. And as you click on them, you add them into your library here, by the way. So if you go to the hamburger options here, there's some decorative ones. The ones I like, actually, the vector ones are kind of cool. There's some grunge brush vector packs that are really interesting. They give you some really interesting kind of results. And all of these will work, the artistic brushes will work with the width selection tool. But again, the way this works best is just with the ordinary basic brush, which leaves everything kind of flat looking. And so then what you can do is grab this width selection tool and basically come into it, and I'll zoom in a little bit here just so it's easier to see. And basically as you click on the width of it, as I drag it out, I'm changing the width interactively. And once I release, you'll see it gets thicker to thin. Now I can come in here at any point and click and drag and modify that so I can change it. I can have lots of areas where, you know, maybe this part gets thicker, this part gets thinner, and you can have a lot of fun kind of varying the line quality essentially as you go through here. But notice just that much has made a huge difference. Now one thing I forgot to do, and I do recommend, is making a copy of everything first, so you have a before and after to kind of look at. So this one here, we'll kind of move it over, and we'll look at this one now with the width selection tool. So along here I can click and drag and kind of modify this, and you kind of get the idea here. So any of these points here you can kind of click and drag, and you just go left or right and you kind of see it get thicker or thinner. And yeah, it's pretty easy to do. Now where you might have problems when you get tight, like in these little corners and stuff, if you start messing with the width selection tool right in here, for example, you're going to get these weird sort of overlapping distortions. If anything like that happens, you can just simply hit Control Z or Command Z on the Mac to undo, and then just kind of come back and modify however you want. Pretty easy to do, right? So I do recommend being zoomed in to some degree to work on these. But watch what happens with this path here, this sort of, like cheekbone or cheek mark. As I click and drag out, essentially I'm creating a fade in and fade out, which is kind of nice. So, and then if I want to change the stroke size, I can click in here, what with it being selected, and change it to like 0.25 or whatever. But I have to select it with the black arrow tool. So right now it's set to, I don't know what size it was at, but here's 0.25, here's 0.75, right? So, and I can go back to 1, for example. 1's kind of nice, got a little bit of thick to thin, but still kind of very light. So basically, have at it and play around with that stroke, the width selection tool. It's pretty easy to do and a lot of fun. Now, the next thing I want to show real quick is just how to do the recoloring. You can see here a bunch of these that are recolored, and it's very easy to do. So let's make actually we do have kind of 2 copies. So let's select this one, and I'll make a copy here. And so, and let me just drag these 2 down, just so I can have one next to the other to kind of see. So I'm selecting this guy here, and the recoloring option is right in your Properties tab here. You click on the Recolor, and it opens this little cool window here. And let me close out the brushes here. This recoloring option has lots of cool things you can do with it. You can go to the Advanced options and open up the bigger dialog, and then click on Open Advanced Recolor Artwork dialog, and that will launch it when it opens up, which is kind of cool. But if you click on Edit, you can basically adjust this little color wing, this color wheel, and basically just kind of spin it around however you want. And notice that each color kind of maintains its proportions to what it was before. If you want to unlink this, you click on this little Unlink Harmony, and now as I drag this, I can recolor, and you can kind of see what parts it's working on. This is the outside stroke basically right here. So if I want a particular color, I can kind of bring it around here. You can also adjust the saturation of that color, and so this stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. So you can move this back and forth to adjust that if you want it to be more saturated. You can also adjust the brightness. You can make it darker or lighter, just by doing that. And so that's really great to be able to do that and just find your colors. Another way you can do it is you can click on this little arrow here and try all these little color libraries. So you can start with one of these and then go into the edit and basically rotate around and adjust however you want. Again, click on the unlink to manually adjust any of the colors you like. And it's just a lot of fun basically to play around with this. Once you like the color scheme you like, all you do is click OK. And just like that, you've essentially recolored your fish in the sense. So it's pretty easy to do. Again, it's the width selection tool and the recoloring. Basically, then you're able to create your own pattern of these 4 symbols. Until next time, see you soon. Cheers.